So he mentions in this how much this album is different than all of his other albums. It's a very different feel. Did you fully know that going in? Were you a part of wanting to create something different maybe for him, or create something similar that he could make his own? Like, I'm curious, where did this kind of idea germ from?
I've known Andrew for a long time. Yeah. He was in a band called the Water Liars that was kind of, at least in that kind of indie rock scene, a lot of people really liked him. They broke up a few years ago, and he's been making some solo stuff. And I've kept up with him and followed him on Instagram, and he would release a song or he would have a post, and I just kind of I was picking up what he was laying down. You know what I mean? I just could tell he was kind of processing some stuff about what it means to be, a young man from the South, and kind of have mixed feelings about, maybe feeling like you don't really belong where you're from. And Andrew's also sober. I'm sober. We were just kind of, I think, going through and thinking about a lot of the same things. And so I just reached out to him and said, hey, I don't know if you're working on new music, but if you do, like, if you're interested in doing like a making of type documentary, I'd love to do that. Wow. And so that's how we got started on it. And so I just started doing some interviews and following him around, and we watched him record the album in the studio, and all these great musicians from Memphis came in to work on it. It was a really cool experience.
Was it at all cathartic making this, or was it changing in any way on that level? I do feel like this film has a capacity for that.
I think it was cathartic for both of us. So he was writing a lot about some of the religious trauma that he had growing up, struggling with kind of what it means to call yourself an artist. Like I said, feeling like maybe you don't really belong where you were born, but then that's the place that made you who you are. So I think through writing about a lot of those themes on this album, it was really cathartic for him. And he says in the documentary that it had been very healing. Yeah. For me, like I said, I was kind of thinking about some of those same things, but I don't want to make a documentary about myself, So I found somebody that was kind of going through some similar stuff, and I kind of got to express myself through his voice in this film, I think. And so it was a really cool thing for both of us.
What did you think you took from your previous film into this, and what have you gained differently from this project in doing it the way you did it compared to your first one?
I'm a run and gun filmmaker. It's way better if I'm reacting to things than planning things, and that works for me. And so I knew that worked for me, that like I can get in and I can find the right spot to be, and I can kind of stay out of the way and let things happen and just react and like, no, I'm getting my shots and covering all that stuff. My goal is always to do things as simply as possible. So if you look at the credits, it's me, because I don't want anybody else there, because I don't want a big crew with lights. And the one thing that Andrew said is he felt like he doesn't really remember me being there a lot of the time, and that's a great compliment, because I don't want to have that big of a footprint and have guys with boom mics hanging over everybody's heads and lights shining in everybody's faces. I just kind of want to be able to be in the corner watching everything unfold. So I learned how to do that on my first film. Yeah. And so I was at ease with it, with that approach, and I knew I could get what I wanted.
It doesn't look like a film that's run and gun, though. Mm-hmm. There are some beautiful shots, for instance. I love the scenery that we get to experience through this film. How much are you looking at the full perspective then? Because I didn't get that vibe from this film. I could feel it was shot quickly and there was movement, but I thought you did put a little time into this. How do you capture shots like that? That's a real talent.
Yeah, the landscape stuff I thought was important because, he says in the film, like, I've been thinking a lot about place. And, where we're from, it kind of gets baked in and makes us who we are. And this landscape, because Andrew's from around here. He's from Pittsboro, Mississippi, which is not far down the road. I just thought it was important to kind of have some shots of these places and make them look beautiful, it's nostalgic in a way. It's not like he's ashamed of where he's from or anything like that. Like I said, it's like where you're from, it kind of makes you who you are, and you have a certain amount of pride in it, even if you feel like you don't belong there all the time. There's things that are beautiful about it. And so that stuff, I do take my time. You know, I drive around and hop out of the car and set the tripod up and get a nice steady shot, you know. So that stuff, the atmospheric stuff, the ambient stuff, I take some time on. But the action, I'm just
well, there's movement, but I was amazed at how aesthetically pleasing the short was. I was moved by some of the shots. So yeah,
thank you.
So now that we've established Andrew's connection to this area, can you talk about knowing that you were going to make it into the festival and showing it here? What does it mean to you? What is it knowing that a Southern audience, an audience that will understand what maybe you guys are trying to talk about?
I think it's important because I think a lot of times, especially if you're a young man from the South, I don't know if you grow up with the tools to think about and talk about and analyze and express how you're really feeling all the time. And so I think to see somebody do that, because you're seeing Andrew do that, it's a really personal film. He talks really openly about some of the things he's thinking about and going through and dealing with and processing and writing about. I just think it's important for, even if it's just the narrow audience of like people like me and him, like young white guys, you know, or whatever, like that it's important for you to be able to see that people are doing this. You know, I think a lot of us as we approach, you know, our 30s or 40s or whatever, we're kind of looking around going like, why do I feel this way? Well, you know, I mean, and you're kind of trying to figure out like, I don't know, you're just taking a closer look at your life and kind of examining some things and working on some things. And you can see him do that in this film.
What did you shoot on?
A Canon C70.
So it's all handheld?
It's on a monopod, most of it. I don't...
Wow, really?
The interview with him, I sat him down and I had it on sticks on a tripod, but like everything else is on a monopod or handheld.
Yeah, wow.
I love my monopod.
I was going to say, it's not an easy thing to pull that off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how much fun did you have in the process of that? That must have been fun to film. It's physical.
Yeah. Yeah. You're running around and like you're trying to get yourself in the right position. In the studio, there's a lot of footage from the studio from Delta Sonic Sound in Memphis, which is a cramped little place. It's not a huge sprawling place. So you're kind of jamming yourself in the corner and getting there. But I like doing things that way. Like I said, I like keeping things as simple as possible. We had some long days. I mean, the days he was recording, I mean, he would be recording from 9 or 10 in the morning till 10 or 11 at night. And so I'm there with the camera and the monopod the whole time, just about.
How important is it that you embrace the music as well? You yourself? Yeah,
I don't know. I do. I agree that it's some of the best music he's made as a solo artist, and I identify with that kind of music. I think the themes are kind of universal. So even if this type of music really isn't your thing, then you'll understand what he's talking about and singing about and going through.
Was there anything that was unexpected in this journey that you're glad it came about that way?
That's a good question. I had a pretty good idea. One of the things why I'm so proud of this is I kind of had this picture in my mind of what I thought it could look like as, you know, as a finished thing, and it kind of looks like that, you know. So, but I was surprised at how comfortable he was. You know, he settled into it and was very comfortable. And like I said, I think sometimes kind of forgot that I was even there. And so I think it just allowed him to be free and to do his thing. And that was kind of a compliment to me that he felt comfortable doing it. So I was just glad to be there.
Has this, don't know how to put this. Is there any chance, I don't know how you would extend this, but is there any ideas of doing something different with Andrew, extending this into something, another type of project, another movie, another, video, another anything? Because I feel like you could go any different avenue with his story and more than just the music.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think this captures like a pretty particular time in his life, even kind of a time in my life. I like this genre of thing. When I was 18, I saw a film called Single Video Theory, which was about Pearl Jam, and it was the making of this one album, and that blew my mind because I had never seen those guys like squabble with each other in the studio and work parts out and just be in life, and that blew my mind, and it always stuck with me, and I've watched that film like 1,000 times, and it occurred to me while I was editing this one, I was like, I'm doing it. I'm making something kind of like that, and so I really like that, and I like that genre of thing that kind of peels back the curtain to the creative process.
It's honest, and I think I learned so much. I'm a 10 Club member. I'm a Pearl Jam nut myself. Okay. So it allows you to learn something, which so many bands and artists are not open. Andrew's one of those open ones.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So I'm curious. I know that you came in with a Detroit hat. You don't come across as a Southern kid when you meet you. What's going on? Where are you a child of everywhere? I'm curious. What's going on, Gerard?
It's funny. Everybody asks me about my Detroit hat. I'm just bald, and I needed a nice warm hat in the winter, and I love that hat. I just think it's a good-looking hat. I'm a Cubs fan and a Rangers fan, and those hats are just bright blue, and that's just not my thing. So.
Which Rangers?
Texas Rangers, yeah. I'm from Texarkana, Arkansas, which is down on the border of Texas and Arkansas.
We're from Dallas, so we know exactly where you're talking. I drove through that wonderful part of your world. Gosh, I'm sorry, Cubs and I guess Cubs are okay, but Cubs and Rangers,
it's tough.
You hate yourself a little bit.
I do.
I get it. That's tough. But Detroit would have fit perfectly then too. As far as y'all's relationship, how has it changed because of this?
Oh, we're a lot closer now.
I mean, gonna have to be.
If you can get through one of these and you still like each other, I guess that's a pretty good thing. He's really happy that this time in his life got documented. It's kind of really meaningful to him because I watched it with him when it was done, and he remembers going through that process, but he didn't see all the things that I saw and all the things that the camera captured. So it's nice for him just to have a little document. But I think for us, it made us closer. And, we're really great friends now, and that's been a nice thing to kind of grow out of it.
You mentioned earlier you're both sober. I feel like hearing Andrew speak, you kind of get a little bit of a catharsis that you yourself, the audience member, can tune into or find in ourselves. What do you hope people gain from watching your film?
I think I just want people to maybe understand that it's okay to wrestle with stuff. Everything's not okay all the time, and I think looking inward is valuable, and I think he's just kind of a good example of that. And anybody that's sober has done some work and has looked in and has, been through some stuff. And so it's kind of cool to see somebody who's been through that process who is thriving artistically and creating, really great music like he is.
Well, Gerard, I really was moved by this project. I didn't anticipate that. So thank you for that, but thank you for taking the time to do this, and thanks for keeping it here in the South. I think it's a nice something for Oxford right now.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.